How's the royal family? I pray that everyone is doing well. Well, my royal family, there is another book out about Donald Trump. And this article that I have in Variety says 5 takeaways from Michael Wolff, and the title of the book, Siege, Trump Under Fire. I'm not going to read this article because I will give up some jewels. There's some things in this article that are not mentioned in the videos that I'm going to present to the royal family, and I do have a bonus, and it is juicy, juicy, juicy. This one of them videos, my royal family, that you just need to stop, go hook your shit up, because it exposed more about Trump, things that we had already knew, but I just take joy that Trump is again getting exposed on the world stage. So there's a lot of criticism too as well in debunking and questioning his source of information. So this is his source. The first book he put out, Fire and Fury, Inside the Trump White House, Steve Bannon. So Michael Wolff and Steve Bannon, they have developed a close relationship, and it is deep, the stuff that he is going to reveal. So we just gonna get right into it, and then we're gonna have that juicy video. So this first video is a little over 8 minutes. Get this volume up real good for y'all. Let's roll with it.
Michael Wolff's first book about the Trump White House, Fire and Fury, rocketed to the top of the bestseller list worldwide because it exposed the chaos inside the Trump White House more fully than any reporting had before it. Then came Bob Woodward's best-selling book, Fear, reinforcing the image of the Trump White House chaos and adding reporting on some new details, including Trump's lawyer, John Dowd, calling the president an effing liar. Now, Michael Wolff is back with Volume 2 of his study of the Trump White House siege, Trump Under Fire. And the reporting in this book shows the Trump White House even more out of control and the president as committed as ever to his fundamental strategy, according to the book, of lying his way out of everything. Michael Wolff reports, among many other things, on the secret ingredient to the most mysterious marriage in Washington, Mr. and Mrs. Kellyanne Conway. Michael Wolff reports, quote, Kellyanne Conway's defense of the president's lies had additionally seemed to bring her into a public confrontation with her husband, George Conway, a partner at the Wall Street firm Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen and Katz, one of the wealthiest and most prestigious firms in the country. George Conway now spends much of his day attacking the president on Twitter. Michael Wolff reports the Conways' public disagreement was, some acquaintances and colleagues believed, itself a lie, one in which the couple conspired to distance themselves from Trump's lies. They are of one mind about Trump, said a friend of the couple's. They hate him. In the book, Michael Wolff finds some of Donald Trump's most private thoughts revealed to Eric Whitestone, who was part of the production team of Donald Trump's TV show, who became known as the Trump Whisperer because he was the most calming influence on Donald Trump on that set. In the book, Donald Trump talks about his family with Eric Whitestone. Quote, he kept saying how much he wished he'd never given Don Jr. his name and wished he could take it back, recalled Whitestone. Once, we were with a bunch of people and Don Jr. suggested that Trump had been to 2 Yankees games in a row where they had lost, so maybe his father was bad luck. And he went ape. Why the F would you say that in front of these people? These effing people are going to go out into the world and tell everyone Trump is bad luck. Don Jr. was practically crying, Dad, I'm so sorry, Dad. And at the hospital, when his grandchild was born, Don Jr.'s kid, Trump said, why the F do I have to go see this kid? Don Jr. has too many effing kids. Joining our discussion once again is Michael Wolff. He is now the author of Siege, Trump Under Fire. Michael, there's so many things I want to cover here. Let's start from Donald Trump Jr. And what we learned from Eric Whitestone, who fascinates me as a source. I mean, there's a lot of discussion in the media about your sources. Eric Whitestone is right there by name on every one of those quotes, credibly in his physical position with Trump on that show, be in a position to hear these kinds of things. What did you gather about Donald Trump's life within his own family from that kind of information?
Well, first, thank you for having me back. It's the strangest family, the most dysfunctional family, and strangely, the most dedicated family. They're dedicated to a man who really could care less about them. I mean, he's terrible to both of his sons. His other daughter, Tiffany, barely exists. His young son, Barron, who theoretically lives with him, has become a major issue in his marriage. I think there are many issues, but this is a major issue because he really doesn't get along with his son. He doesn't communicate with his son. His son is effectively not at all a part of his life, even though he lives with him.
You also report the incredibly peculiar detail that Donald Trump is reportedly jealous of his son's height, because at 12 years old, he's apparently growing up close to Donald Trump's height.
Jealous of everyone's height. He never lets himself be in a photograph with someone taller than he is. Height is one of his techniques. He uses his height. And remember, Donald Trump is a very large man.
You talk about a Trump White House where by the time you get to this passage of Kellyanne Conway and her husband actually sharing a feeling of hatred for Donald Trump, you've revealed all sorts of people working in the White House who have hatred for Donald Trump, including Don McGahn, most importantly, possibly, because he could be the most damaging witness against Donald Trump eventually.
I've certainly never met anyone who has worked with Donald Trump or come in contact with Donald Trump on more than X number of occasions, who does not view him with incredulity and contempt.
And one of the things about McGahn is that we are watching a public drama in which McGahn, by public appearances, seems loyal to Donald Trump because he's refusing to comply with congressional subpoenas. What do you see in that public drama?
Well, I think,
given your reporting about what Don McGahn actually thinks of Donald Trump,
right, I think that there's two things. I mean, if the president, this becomes a kind of technical. A technical legal process. The president says you cannot testify, so you're caught for the moment until someone else makes you testify. So that's the game that we're playing now. The president will say you can't testify, and everyone then is waiting for some other authority to force them to testify, and then they will testify, and then the edifice will begin to crumble.
And you think that's true for Hope Hicks and all of them across the board?
Absolutely. Yeah. They will. I mean, one of the things, I have some testimony before the special counsel, and the witnesses asked about Hope Hicks. Would she, how loyal, what was her level of loyalty to the president? Very high, said the witness. Would she lie for the president? Remember, and she had said, she had told white lies on his behalf, and the witness said, well, that this witness thought that she would go to a certain degree, but she certainly wasn't going to go to jail for this president. So I think loyalty, even with Hope Hicks, has firm limits.
We were talking about wife number 2 in the beginning of the show. You write about her, but you also write about wife number 3, the First Lady, extensively. And your reporting has the First Lady in effect, living in Maryland, not really living in the White House, but
exactly.
She got a house for her parents in Maryland, and she and her son live mostly in Maryland, and that's close to the school that her son and the president's son goes to?
Yes, that's what I understand, yes.
And the mystery about, we have to go to a break for a second. Could you stay for another segment after this break? But the mystery of the First Lady in a hospital for about a week, you approach that mystery in the book, but you never quite solve what that was about.
I didn't, and nor has anyone else. But it remains one of those very interesting puzzles of the last year in office.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel.
Wow.
Subscribe.
Wow, my royal family. This shit is real juicy. Ooh, real juicy. And I want to say so much right now, but I gotta just keep it rolling and contain myself, because this shit is juicy, syrupy, sweet, sopping, sweet. Juicy. So, my royal family, let's continue on as the plot thickens. Woo! Let me see. Wait a minute. Here it is. Now, this is an exactly 10-minute video. See what more he got to say about Trump and his dysfunctional family.
Jonathan Swan of Axios finally got Jared Kushner to talk on camera, and Jonathan Swan made the most of it, including asking about Donald Trump lying about President Barack Obama's birthplace.
Was birtherism racist?
Look, I wasn't really involved in that.
I know you weren't. Mm-hmm. Was it racist?
Like I said, I wasn't involved in that.
I know you weren't. Mm-hmm. Was it racist?
Look, I know who the president is, and I have not seen anything in him that is racist. So again, I was not involved in that.
Did you wish he didn't do that?
Like I said, I was not involved in that. That was a long time ago.
Jonathan Swan also asked Jared Kushner about the murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, who was a critic of Jared Kushner's friend Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia has admitted that Saudi agents strangled and dismembered Khashoggi. Islam, Judaism, and Christianity value burying the dead. Will you join Khashoggi's fiancée in calling on the Saudi government to release his body to his family, or identify where they've put the body parts so his loved ones might give him, if not a timely burial, at least a burial?
Look, it's a horrific thing that happened, and what we've done is we've called for full transparency. We're working on an investigation to get to the bottom of what happened.
Should they return the body?
Once we have all the facts, then we'll make policy determinations, but that'll be up to the Secretary of State to kind of push on our policy, and we'll do everything we can to try to bring transparency and accountability for what happened.
Michael Wolff is back with us. His new book is full of news about Jared Kushner. It goes on sale tomorrow. Siege, Trump Under Fire. Jared Kushner's a major character in this book, and I'm sure you are not at all. I don't think any reader of your book would be surprised that Jared Kushner cannot even answer the question, should the Saudis return the body?
You know, at some level, Jared was, and let's choose the word carefully, I'm going to retreat from this because I'm going to end up saying he was complicit in this, and I'm sure that on an actual level is not true, but on a support level, on a friendship level, on a would MBS have murdered Khashoggi if he didn't know that he had the absolute support of Jared Kushner in this White House? I don't know, but he certainly did have the absolute support. And in fact, there's a point in the book where after Khashoggi is murdered and the White House doesn't know how to respond, and Jared calls up MBS and says, I think you better execute all those guys very quickly, the guys who actually were the executioners of Khashoggi.
What's the sourcing on that. I mean, you admit in your sourcing of the book that a lot of the people who were sources for your first book are no longer working in the White House, like Steve Bannon and others who could be physically close. I got to say, when I read a lot of the Jared Kushner passages, it almost seems like Jared Kushner would be the source, since he's one of the two people in the room. But the material is so negative to Jared Kushner.
Well, I'm not going to I'm not going to discuss the sources on this. The sources are, except to say that the sources would have heard this from one of the participants.
People in the room. The president, I mean, you're reluctant to put names to Jared Kushner or what he does, but the president, I read in here, has nicknames for everyone, just as a lot of people in this book we now learn about what John Kelly calls Donald Trump. In your first book, we learned about all sorts of names that everyone was calling Donald Trump.
Everybody is calling everybody else a name, and I assume that sort of begins with Trump. It's the ultimate defense. You have to be calling someone names because he's calling everyone names.
And they're all calling Donald Trump crazy. They're all calling him out of control, stupid, all those kinds of things.
Let's go even, because I think it's an important point. Anybody who has had contact with Donald Trump comes away thinking that there's something wrong with him. I mean, and that's putting it in a nice way.
And there's a point in the book where Donald Trump, in one of his many points of frustration with Jared Kushner, at the end of his complaint about Jared Kushner, says, "What a girl." He refers to him as a girl, and for Donald Trump, that is about the most negative thing he can say about anyone.
Exactly.
How does that relationship work, where the president doesn't respect him in your account?
Well, it's a very important relationship. It's really key because remember, he's the only person who has managed to go the distance so far in this White House. Everybody else who began
and
is
his wife,
out.
The president's daughter.
Yes, and that's why. Yeah. I mean, what's the reason Jared gets to go the distance? Because he is married to Ivanka, the only person. I think that she is singular in this regard, who the president doesn't disparage.
And you make the point that the president wants loyalty, he wants devotion, and then when he gets it, he doesn't trust you. He thinks less of you when you deliver the kind of devotion and service that he wants.
You know, this is to say the very least, a difficult man to work with. To go a little further than this is a crazy person.
And that's a continuation of what was in your first volume of this study of Trumpism. And you presented at the beginning as a bit more than anything else a continuing psychological profile of Donald Trump, of who this man is and how his mind works, which in your view I take to be the most important thing about what you can find in your studies of this, is how does the president's mind work?
I think that's crucial. I mean, I think ultimately 100 years from now, 50 years from now, 10 years from now, we're not going to be talking about the president's policies. We're going to be talking about who this man is. How did this possibly happen? How could a person like this find himself in the position that he's found himself in? And what does this, what does this mean? How do you tell the story about this? I mean, one of the interesting things is I think the dominant narrative now is that Donald Trump is the strong man. Donald Trump is the guy who's going to burn through everybody else. Donald Trump is the guy who's going to get what he wants. Whereas I think actually the narrative is Donald Trump is melting down. Every day it gets stranger and stranger. Every day he's more alone. Every day someone else deserts him. Every day he does something that is more peculiar, less logical, and has to be undone by someone else.
What do your sources tell you about what Donald Trump thinks of Robert Mueller? And did that change over time?
He thought from the beginning he could take Robert Mueller. He says, I know this guy. I know this kind of guy. He's too straight. And as I said, he said, he's got no game. And I think he sensed that. He sensed this as a weakness in the special prosecutor. He sensed that he could be, you know, by saying witch hunt, witch hunt, witch hunt, he could be the person that Robert Mueller was essentially would say, you know, this is a crazy man, and how to predict what a crazy man will do, and that's a scary thing. I mean, at one point, Steve Bannon says about Mueller. This is after the report is filed. Bannon says
the Mueller report becomes public.
Yes.
Steve Bannon sees the results,
and he says, "Never send a Marine to do a hitman's job." And I think that he sees this as Steve understood. You know, Robert Mueller is there as an institutional guy to protect an institution. And Donald Trump is perfectly willing to destroy an institution.
In an institution that relies on norms, in a town that relies on norms in addition to laws, the point, it seems, at the end of that, your account of this, is that someone who plays by the rules, which is Robert Mueller's life, plays it by the rules, cannot match what Donald Trump will do to the rules.
It turns out, I mean, you know, I think we went into thinking about this, that, you know, Bob Mueller was a straight arrow, and he would take on the crooked guy. You know, but at best, I think it's a draw.
Michael Wolff, thank you very much for volume.
My royal family. Okay, before we get to the bonus video, the thing that stood out to me the most is the family dynamics. And some of this stuff I have read about, the relationships that he have with his children, but this gave a deeper insight. And what I was thinking about is when I was working, and I remember one time I was sitting with some brothers at lunch, and we was talking about how rotten white people treat you at work. And I said that they take that shit home with them, and this negativity, and y'all always find a way to balance that out. So the enemy is out on the job just doing negative shit all day, but when they get home, they don't get the love, the welcome committee, or anything, you know. So all that nastiness that Trump projects on many, somewhere along the way, it has to balance out, and it went right back to his family. He raised a house full of crooks. They have a superior attitude, and then you just got some of his children that don't want to have shit to do with him. They know what their father is. Now, his youngest son, I've seen on more than one occasion when he tries to hold his hand, his son don't want to be touched. And the reason why, remember when Trump was running for office and he was mocking, I think it was a child and even a few adults that are handicapped, and he looks at his son, because his son has autism, as failure, and he's so ignorant he will blame that type of stuff on his wife. See, as you get older, money don't mean shit. You know, all these tangible things, if you don't have the love from your family, oh, you gonna feel it some kind of way. You gonna feel it some kind of way. So we talk about the political stuff all the time. That speaks for itself. So this is just giving us an insight on that personal shit, that real personal shit. So the bonus video is a prediction that this author says about Trump. And that's why they on his ass, because they want to know that sourcing. And to clear that up a little bit more, Steve Bannon let him get Steve Bannon he couldn't get close to the president, but he was close to Steve and the staff in general. Because the first book, he talked about like his eating habits and, you know, these quirky things that Trump have. You know, he likes to eat tons of fast food. And I was reading in this article that, I think this is the one that I'm providing y'all, is that his excuse, the reason why he eat McDonald's is because they never know when he gonna show up to get the food. I was like, what? Now, I'm not saying it verbatim, but that's how he's thinking. So I couldn't possibly be poisoned by eating McDonald's because I just popped up to get my food. Or, you know, he'll send his Secret Service. You know, he craved that shit, you know. You know, in the White House, they have some of the finest chefs in the world, and your uncouth ass, all you can do is eat some fucking McDonald's. They say money refines you. It does not. It brings out your true ass nature. So that's the part that just tickled me about his kids, his wife, and everything. Because when it's all said and done, Trump gonna be dealing with many blows just within his family and all the other legal shit. So let's get into this bonus video, and we will get more into this man's prediction and the politics and all of this stuff. Wait a minute, let me see here. Okay. This video is going to be about 4 minutes, and I skipped 4 minutes of it because it has nothing to do with Trump, and I don't want to drag shit out. Just, you know, I'm always going for the juicy, the nucleus of shit. I'm telling you, shit is juicy. I like juicy videos. Makes me feel real good. Tastes real good too. To see a motherfucker get drugged all over the world stage.
I want to ask you some specifics about what Steve Bannon said again on the record, because it is fascinating. This gets to the idea of the investigations into the Trump businesses. There was a suggestion that the president's personal company is a semi-criminal enterprise, and Bannon responded to you, I think we can drop the semi part. So was he joking, or what do you think he meant there? Because you're right that he did chuckle when he said it.
I think that he's perfectly straightforward about this. And he's perfectly straightforward about, I think, the way that most people who have been around Donald Trump believe. They believe that you know, Donald Trump's long career has been a, well, I would say semi-criminal career. Steve Bannon would say lose the semi.
So does he have direct knowledge of that, do you think, or just suspected at this point?
No, I think he probably has. Yeah, I suspect he does have direct knowledge of that.
Do you think Steve Bannon believes that the president obstructed justice? Yes.
Now, I would say that Steve Bannon would go and characterize this as that's Donald Trump. So, I mean, the Steve Bannon view is partly, you know what this guy is. There's never been any illusion otherwise. He's Donald Trump. That's the man you elected. A man who literally cannot tell the truth. At one point in the book, Steve says, I describe Steve as saying, I cannot tell you how many times he has looked me in the eye and lied to me.
Yet he's still devoted to him in some ways.
Well, he's still, I mean, it's a weird devotion. It's love, hate, mm-hmm. or it's, you know, repulsion, attraction. You know, remember, Steve made Donald Trump president. Donald Trump transformed Steve into a voice in the world.
Back to the obstruction issue, the reason I was asking if you think that Steve Bannon thinks that the president obstructed justice, because you write Bannon saying, never send a Marine to do a hitman's job. And he's talking about Robert Mueller. And I wasn't sure what that meant. It made me wonder.
I think I can explain
okay, go ahead.
Did
he want Mueller to catch him?
He doesn't want, it depends, I think, on the moment of the day.
Sometimes he wanted Mueller to catch him?
I think sometimes he believed that he would catch him, that it was inevitable. You know, But what he literally meant, and it's really interesting because I think it goes to the heart of where Mueller is now and what we think of this investigation. Mueller is a guy who is an institutional guy. He defends the institution. He's not going to. But I think if the choice became for Bob Mueller, give Donald Trump a pass, or risk Donald Trump pulling the temple down, I think he would give Donald Trump a pass.
And you write that. Yeah, you write that very clearly. So just in closing, what do you want people to take from this book, in and apart from the first one?
I think that it gets crazier and crazier, that Donald Trump is more isolated, more alone, that as we see this, and there's often we let it seem that Donald Trump is this dominant personality. I think this is the story of a meltdown, one of the greatest political meltdowns of all time.
Well, where do you think it ends?
In tears.
Whose tears?
Donald Trump's tears.
Where does Steve Bannon think it ends?
There. In Donald Trump's tears. And let's put it this way. I said to Steve, I referred to the possibility of Trump getting another term, winning the election, and Steve said, "Stop."
Wow. Wasn't that juicy, my royal family? That was some juicy shit. I'm telling you, I'm loving it. I am truly, truly loving it. And what I was thinking about is, and I did agree with the author, is that the people that work around him, as it looked like he gonna be touched in some kind of way, he's gonna be abandoned more and more, you know. And think about this, my royal family. If you worked for Trump, would you want to put that on your resume? You know what I'm saying? I mean, because he's literally being laughed at on the world stage. You know, people from around the world would want to come to America because, you know, people would give illusions that it was streets of gold here in America. And when people really find out internally what America's all about, it's nasty. It's real nasty. And the divine hand, see, look at this spiritually. The divine hand is dealing with Trump. And, you know, it puts you in that frame of mind of Nebuchadnezzar, you know, or Pharaoh, you know, how Pharaoh dealt with, how Yah dealt with Pharaoh's psyche and hardened his heart and stuff. And all these antics that Trump are pulling, eventually it's going to take a toll, and people are going to distance themselves because they don't want to get caught up. Because if you go and just look, I was looking at this chart, and I lost count of all the people that have went to jail and stuff. Trump has a bad omen around him, and way before he became the president, I said he's a low frequency person. I said that long ago. I had to dig in my archives to look for that one, to listen to it my damn self. But I remember saying that because I was picking up on his energy. And even Omarosa said, like with the name calling, she said he have a name for everyone, and they want to question this dude. Like, his sources ain't credible. His sources is credible because people want to tell, because he's so off the hook and over the top. They be like, you wouldn't believe this shit about this dude. He is really fucked up, and his family fucked up. Nobody don't want to be around nobody like that, you know. Look at who's going down. I mean, one of his personal lawyers that know where the bodies lie at. I mean, heads is rolling, people are resigning, you know, people doing shit they thought they would never do. Look at Bill Barr's fat ass. Just a tub of fat, write a 19-page letter. It's like he working for the mafia. And see, Trump, he has illusions of grandeur. He think he so suave and slick and all of that. No, you ain't. He a foolish wannabe unquote gangster. But see, he run his fucking mouth too much. Because a true a true gangster don't barely talk. They observing their environment. They checking, you know, people that they got to deal with and reading them, you know. And Trump is foolish. You know, he goes over here to London and late at night, he fucking playing on Twitter. And he the president of the United States. His mind is more occupied with, oh, somebody didn't called me a name or said something I didn't like, and he gonna make it a fucking point to reach out and say something slimy to a motherfucker, you know? And you sitting up there, you know, with the fake Queen of England, and you know, and they putting on these different ceremonies, and you know, Trump don't know how to posture himself and be diplomatic. He has no tact and no diplomacy at all. He trailer park material. And I just take joy dragging his dusty ass out. And I just love that sweet ass ending with this author in tears. Ain't that juicy, my royal family? Ooh, Trump. Ooh, Trump, you got issues. So, my royal family, I really want y'all to read this article. It's got some juicy stuff in this article, and I'll just drop one little jewel in this article. They talk about Trump's wife possibly being addicted to opiates. Juicy, juicy, juicy. Okay, my royal family, I done wore the shit out. So, render your voice with your beautiful divine words. And as always, my royal family, I thank you for your love. I thank you for your support. And with that said, Ashe.